Hi. So this live is going to be interesting. Today is Monday, February 16th. So it is the final day of the year of the snake. Tomorrow we move into the year of the fire horse. Tomorrow is also a new moon and a solar eclipse. So astrologically, right, a lot of things are happening. Personally, for me, a lot of things are happening. I did not go live last week. I had intended to, but Wednesdays, as you may know, are the days that I'm trying to be consistent with going live on. But going live on Substack, I've come to realize is more for me than anything else. It's a way for me to speak about the things that I'm moving through and the stories that I'm working on and what will eventually be coming out in like written expanded form, right? It's a way for you to see the process as well. So Wednesdays don't always happen. And for example, right, last week on Wednesday, I was booked and busy. And by the time I got home, I did not feel like talking more. So I didn't go live. And then the next day on Thursday, I was like, oh, I've got the energy. I'm ready to go. There were technical issues. I couldn't go live. And there's a part of me right now that's like, you could just wait, right, until Wednesday. But my mom is coming to visit. And so this week, the schedule is just kind of all over the place. So, not that you need the backstory, but I'm providing it anyway. There's a lot of things that I could talk about right now. Obviously, collectively, Epstein files, right? And everything that's happening with that. And I'm sure that I will touch on things in my own way. What's fascinating for me right now is I am moving through a lot of interesting shifts and changes, transformations, evolutions. Like literally right now, I work a lot with the gene keys and human design. Personally, I work more with the gene keys. For me, I've mentioned this before, but just for those of you who are new, right? Human design for me is very masculine based. It gives you the structure. Whereas the gene keys is more feminine, it's more fluid, it's the art of contemplation, whereas human design is the science of differentiation. So just the way in which they're described will likely give you an idea of where the differences are, right? I prefer kind of floating and contemplating the gene keys, seeing how things weave together. I enjoy connecting the dots, right? It's fun for me. On Saturday, February 14th, I had planned on leading a class on the Venus sequence, which in the gene keys, there are 3 sequences. I mean, there's more than 3, but the 3 primary ones, right, that are like out publicly, all that jazz are the activation sequence, the Venus sequence, and the Pearl sequence. The Pearl sequence also adds on the star pearl. That's a different story. We'll go into that another time. But the point is, I was planning on hosting a class on the Venus sequence, which is all about love and relationships. It's literally the way that I use it. I use it a lot in my trauma-informed coaching and mentorship containers because the Venus sequence is affiliated with different stages of childhood development. So a lot of the inner child wounding that people experience, you look at the Venus sequence and the spheres, the gene keys that you have in the spheres, and it's like, okay, contemplate this. What gets unlocked for you, right? What realizations do you have? On Saturday, I meant to host this class, but something else came up and I decided, you know what, we're going to postpone this. I'm going to revamp it a little bit. And I won't go into that yet, but I'm sure I will, right? What was really interesting about the timing of all this, though, is at the same time I had planned on leading a class about this, a live class. The revamped version of it is going to be recorded so you can just go at your own pace, right? And it's going to be more structured. So there's that. But what's fascinating about this for me is over the past week and a half, I have been heavily moving through the Venus sequence myself. I've had friendships that have been tested this past week. And as a single woman, right, a lot of the growth that I experience in relation to others is not through romantic partnership. It's through my friendships or my familial relationships. It's through people that I work with and support. It's all of these non-traditional ways of relating with people, which I think is very underrated, but that's a tangent for another time, right? I've learned a lot over the course of this last week, and it's fascinating to me, right? Because one of the reasons why I love the Gene Keys so much is I was raised in Minnesota. Minnesota nice, right? I was raised to be a good girl. And for the vast majority of my life, I have been a people pleaser. Like, ooh, Emily, you're displaying your shadows. That's not good. You're a bad girl, right? You're not worthy of receiving love and compassion if you're in your shadows, right? That was the mentality, the mindset that I was conditioned into, and I suspect a lot of you will probably resonate with that. I enjoy playing with my shadows now because I recognize that they're not bad. They are a part of me. It's also really interesting for me to reflect on the ways in which my shadows are found in other people. Like when I'm interacting with someone, for example, my core wound, I mentioned this a lot, is Gene Key 49.4. Line 4 is the fear of rejection, abandonment as well, right? Gene Key 49 is heavily tied to abandonment and rejection. So it's kind of like I've got that double whammy, and I have a lot of wounding around community. You'll be able to listen to that in a podcast episode that's coming out soon as well, where I dive more into that. The shadow of Gene Key 49, though, is reaction. So whenever I am put into a situation or I find myself in a situation, right? Whether there are other people directly in front of me or it's just virtual, and I find myself being triggered in whatever way, and I feel myself starting to react immediately. That is it's a sign for me, right? To take a step back, take a breath, which is interesting because Gene Key 49, right? Gate 49 is a solar center gate, and the solar center very tied to the breath. Again, these connections I find fascinating. But anyway, something that I've noticed is when I show up, I don't even need to do anything. But sometimes when I show up, And I am doing something that I recognize will trigger people if they react. There's so many ways that I look at that. I look at one, am I in my shadows? Like, honestly, Emily, are you moving from your shadows right now? Right? I contemplate that. I check myself. What are my intentions here? Right? And then if I know that my intentions are pure, even if I am coming at things with a little bit of edge, right? Why are they reacting? What trigger or what is being triggered in them? Most of the time, it's their core wound or something else. If I have their actual gene keys charts, like I can pinpoint exactly where it's coming from. But irregardless of that, the way that I use this is just, to me, fascinating. But anyway, I've been moving through these things this past week, right? With friendships. And then I'm also preparing for my mom to visit. I'm very excited. I have not seen her for over a year. Um, there's also, full transparency, some anxiety around that. Um, Gene Key 49 is tied to the mother wound, at least from my perspective. I don't know, some other people might argue that point with me. Possibly. There's a voice in the back of my mind, right? That's like, Emily, you're not the expert in this. You shouldn't claim that. But I'm like, from me personally working with it, it's tied to the mother wound. And it's interesting to me, right? Because Gene Key 57 is also very tied to the sacred wound and the mother wound as well. And 57 is my sphere of purpose. So if you're looking at things from a Venus sequence perspective, I have 49 up top in the core wound, and then I have 57 at the bottom in the sphere of purpose. So it's like bookending all of my trauma are mother wounds. And I'm just like, oh my God. Right? Like, Emily, you know what you are here to transmute. This is going to be fun. So my mom's coming, right? And there's a part of me that is worried, right? Because I am being more outspoken publicly about a lot of things. And my immediate family, I've talked about my extended family a little bit before. So if you've watched multiple replays, you're already aware. But if you're new here, my extended family is very MAGA. My immediate family is very not. So it's like the family dynamics are fascinating. Um, Particularly for me to just kind of observe, because I almost liken that to 49 as an Aquarius gate and Gene Key. And I have it not only in my core wound, but also my conscious moon. So it's like it governs my emotions. It's fascinating. I'm able to detach from things very easily, almost to like a fault. Like it can be borderline toxic. Again, I am so aware of my wounding, my shadows, my toxic behaviors. Very aware of that, which is going to lead me into something else soon-ish, right? But point being, my mom's coming, and I know that a lot of the ways in which I'm starting to show up more publicly and the things that I'm sharing are I don't know what word I want to use here, but it's going to cause friction, right? And I cannot control that. I can't control the ways in which people react to me, right? I've had to come to terms with that. And one of the reasons why this is top of mind for me, right, is the Super Bowl just happened, and I'm not a football girly. I honestly don't give a fuck. I was rooting for the Seahawks, for a multitude of reasons. But honestly, like, I don't follow football. Like, I don't. I watched the halftime show. I thought that Bad Bunny was amazing. Loved that. So just stating that, right? But what was interesting, right, is my aunt and my cousin, neither of whom I speak with, both made comments on Facebook about how good the Turning Point USA halftime show was. And I was just like, I already don't follow my aunt, but she commented on my cousin's post, and I followed my cousin at the time. I since decided not to, right? Because it just, there was part of me that still did because I had hopes that, like, maybe things were changing, right? And then there was also a part of me that's like, you need to keep an eye on things, right? But at this point, I was just like, if they are still heavily supporting Trump and everything that he represents, no. Like, particularly because, and I'm not going to dive into this today, but season 1, episode 5 of The Glass Box, I have not re-listened to that episode. I plan to, but I talk about, I think it's titled something like navigating family trauma, societal expectations, and something else, right? And I talk about the fact that as a child, I was molested more than once by more than one person. The details don't matter. My aunt apparently listened to that episode and went to my mom, freaking out, right? Because, did you know what Emily's saying? Did you know that something happened to her with somebody in our family? Was it this person? Was it that person? Was it that person? And I'm just sitting here after my mom told me, right? Because my mom wasn't aware. I never told her. And there's a voice in the back of my mind, right? That's like, Emily, maybe you should have warned her before putting this story out into the universe for the world to see. That kind of like reasoning, right, is actually, I'm not going to dive into this out of respect for the person involved in this right now, but like that's one of the things that I'm navigating with a friend right now is like, I am a writer. I am going to be writing stories that are inspired by things that I have experienced and relationships that I've been in. Sometimes people are going to see themselves reflected in that. So it's like I'm navigating how to do that in a way that remains authentic to me without censoring myself, but also respecting the relationships that I have, right? So it's like I will speak more to this after I've moved through it more, but just kind of like planting seeds, dropping hints of stories to come, right? But anyway, so my aunt listened to that episode. She jumped to conclusions. She brought it to my mom, and my mom came to me. And there's very much a part of me that's sitting here like, how can you support a pedophile knowing that your own niece is a survivor. Right? So that's one of the things I'm navigating right now. The other thing that I'm navigating, and this one is an interesting one, also tied to Minnesota, right? On January 7th, I went live, and you can watch that replay. I talked about moving to Mankato, Minnesota, what it was like growing up in District 77, being part of the 77 Lancers, which was the high school marching band. I never really interacted with Ted Gullickson, but he is a pedophile. He was a teacher. He was the band director at the high school I went to, as well as the marching band that I was a part of. Again, I did not interact with him. Maybe in passing, but like never one-on-one or anything like that. I was in the color guard. He dealt with band. So I was separate from that. I was ultimately protected, right? And I made a connection in that live that I had made years prior, but finally shared publicly. And I think it was yesterday, I shared that clip specifically on social media, knowing that I would get backlash for it. Connecting Tim Walz to Ted Gullickson. And there was a part of me when I did it, right, that was like, ooh, right? Because there's no clear evidence connecting Tim Walz to Ted Gullickson, aside from the fact that they both worked at the same school at the same time, right? So I had people commenting that you're jumping to some pretty absurd conclusions there, connecting dots that don't need to be connected, right? All that jazz. I was prepared for that. I don't need to justify myself at all. But to be more transparent, right? To be more clear, this isn't about Tim Walz. I give zero fucks about Tim Walz. And I know some people are going to react to this because they already have. And they're going to assume that because I give zero fucks about Tim Walz, a Democrat, that I must be a Republican. Girl, I'm a third party. I'm an independent. Ooh, look at that. Oh, I'm not running for office, but fun fact, I do support people who do. I actually just got into something that's gonna help that more as well. So that's a story for another time. Interesting things happening, right? Anyway, I'm an independent woman. Um, an independent whatever, right? I voted for the Green Party in 2024. I voted for Jill Stein and Butch Ware. I've mentioned that before. But in our society, we are so set in this mindset that you are either or. You're either red or blue, right? So if I give zero fucks about Tim Walz, that means that I must support pedophiles. And I'm like, why would I? Like, people, I understand that clickbait is a thing, right? I understand that I am going to be taken out of context. I am going to be misunderstood. I am fully prepared for that. I have done the work on myself so that I can move forward still being stable and secure and knowing myself so much that the vitriol, the accusations that people are going to throw my way, the judgments that people are going to make about me literally bounce back on them, almost like a mirror, which is also fascinating, right? Because like part of me, Glassbox comes to mind. So do two-way mirrors. Like sometimes it literally feels like I'm behind a mirror, a two-way mirror. I'm just watching things. People can hear me and they look and like they might see my outline or what is out publicly, right? Like that's a fascinating thing. Some of the reactions that I got on that video with Tim Walz, very honestly, it's like it's fascinating. I had a back and forth with one individual who, for all intents and purposes, we should be on the same side, right? He's got posts on his Facebook talking about how like basically if you voted for Trump and etc., you support pedophiles and XYZ. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like we're on the same page with that. What's fascinating about this though, right, is like because I'm speaking out not even against the people that they support, I'm questioning everybody. I don't give a fuck what party you're from. If you are even somehow tied to a pedophile, I have questions. I'm just saying. And it's funny because, like, I hold myself accountable with this as well. I commented on that and I responded to somebody on this post that I had, right? Sharing the clip from the January 7th live because somebody asked, like, well, if you heard the rumors, right? Why didn't you speak up? That was the implication. And I'm like, I know. I could have spoken up more when I was in high school and questioned things more, right? But also, I was a traumatized child who had been molested, and I saw the signs. I heard the rumors. Did I want to speak out? Absolutely. But nobody who did was ever believed. And that was my experience. So it's like, you know, if you resonate with me, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you don't, then I question whose side you're really on. Do you believe the survivors? Do you support them? Even if they don't have clear fucking evidence. Because guess what? In a lot of these cases, decades have passed. Somebody commented on that video. I shared it to TikTok as well, right? And somebody commented that I don't think you should have posted this. And it's interesting because there's a voice in the back of my mind, right? That's like, Emily, maybe you shouldn't have posted that because people are going to misunderstand you. They're going to judge. The way that I am done moving in the way that people think that I should or should not move, I'm fucking done. I know that I'm going to make mistakes moving forward. I might call somebody out and it's like, maybe they shouldn't have been, right? But also, maybe they should be. Tim Walz might have nothing to do, like I said, with Ted Gullickson other than the fact that they both worked at the same high school for years. That might legitimately be the only connection. But again, If I heard rumors, I'm assuming that the adults did too. And you know what they say about making assumptions, right? It makes an ass out of you and me. But I mean, my mind goes, well, Tim Walz is a Democrat, so technically he is a jackass. And we already know that I have dad ass. So who gives a fuck, right? If people get offended by me and get triggered by me speaking about that, sweetheart, buckle up. Like, we're literally shedding the last skin from the year of the snake and we're moving into the fire horse. Like, things are gonna start happening. I know that the stories that I share are going to trigger a lot of people. I know that people are going to judge me for my stories, for how I choose to share them, for who I do or do not bring attention to, all that jazz. Side note, somebody did ask a very valid question in response to that clip that I shared. They were like, well, why are you going after Tim Walz? Why not go after and address? Sorry, one of the cats is scratching on something. Why don't you go after and address the other teachers that work there too? Like, sweetheart, I will fully. Tim Walz just unfortunately has the public platform, right? That means, like, I'm sorry, sweetheart, you're going to be in the line of fire because out of all of the teachers that are connected to Ted Gullickson, you are the most prominent public figure. Also, I could go into like, okay, I said on January 7th, I don't know much about the man. I don't. He seems like a very sweet man, an old Minnesota nice white man, right? He was running with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris supports Israel and therefore genocide. Therefore, Tim Walz is connected to genocide. That is how this works. I don't make the rules. Okay? You can judge me for how I play the game. I fully expect that you will. And it's funny because part of me is like, well, Emily, do you expect other people to be judging you because you're judging yourself? Maybe, right? Because there's that voice in the back of my mind that's like, Emily, you're not being a good girl. You're not people pleasing. This is dangerous. This is scary. You might get in trouble, right? You might be rejected. Like all of those things. But what that voice is trying to do is trying to keep me safe. But it's also preventing me from expanding in the way that I need to. It's preventing me from making the impact that I am here to make. They want us to be quiet. They don't want us connecting the dots. They don't want us coming to our own conclusions and realizing the depths at which the corruption goes. I don't know if I worded that the right way, right? But like, it is what it is. Speaking out is dangerous. That is what we have been taught. And so we stay quiet because it's safe, right? No, it's not. It is safe to speak out if you feel safe in your own body. How I've gotten to this point is through literally being more comfortable in my body, right? Treating my body with the respect that it deserves, feeding it well, moving it, right? Fitness, strength training is very important to me. But it's not just that, because that can be seen as kind of superficial in some ways, right? Like, it's the mindset work, it's the inner work as well. The Gene Keys in Human Design has helped me with that more so than anything else. Particularly, right? Because like one of the interactions that I had today, I was kind of trolling this guy, like full transparency. I have fun with that sometimes. Um this guy commented on the clip, and it was what it was. And then he made a comment about how, by the way, you look older than me. And I'm like, oh boy. Like, sweetheart. First of all, I may or may not look older than you. I don't think that I do. I'm sure without makeup, when I'm like really tired and dehydrated and my wrinkles are like standing out and I've got sunspots and freckles on my face, like, yeah, sure, I look old. I'm a 35-year-old woman who's never had Botox or any kind of surgery or anything like that. Like, I am au naturel, right? I'm not trying to look younger than I am. And what was interesting about that connection, right, is this is the guy that, like, I looked at his profile and he had like some kind of post about you support pedophiles. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, we're on the same page. Pedophilia is bad, right? But then he made that comment, and my mind goes like, so you like young looking women then, I'm assuming. Like, you're obviously making a judgment call about me. I'm gonna return the favor, right? And it was funny too, then, because like one of the things that I do, I enjoy interacting with people online. Like, going into the comment section and having conversations in that way gives me inspiration. It expands my way of thinking. Sometimes, not always, right? Like, but when people challenge me and then they actually like we have a back and forth, like I had a really good back and forth with somebody else the other day where I was like, okay, I inspired you to grow. You in turn helped me to grow. Like, thank you for that lovely conversation, sir. Respectfully. Like, it was it was a lowercase s, but because it was grammatically correct, not because I don't respect him, right? Um, but anyway, one of the things that I do is I will go back and forth for free because I get paid to coach people and to mentor people, which involves back and forth text, voice notes, and then also one-to-one calls. I will do that for free on social media in the comments to a point. At some point, it's like, okay, this is just like, nah, it's not serving anymore. So when that happens, particularly when it's with people where I'm like, you're not my actual audience, you're just trolling me and I'm trolling you, like, I'm doing it for the plot, right? Um, one of the things that I do is I say, and I said, I think almost verbatim, right? I don't have it in front of me right now, but I said, and on that note, if you want to continue this stimulating conversation, you can book a one-to-one with me. And that's where I leave it, right? I invite them to work with me if they want to keep talking to me, because otherwise it's a waste of my time and my energy at that point. Like, nothing else is going to come from it. He responded by saying they don't need lessons from a grifter and a scumbag like me. And I'm like, What is it that you think that I do, sir? That one's the asterisk, lowercase s. Just FYI. And like that's me jumping to conclusions, right? Based on past experience. I know what people think about me. I'm very aware. I was fired for what I assume, because I never got a clear answer, of what people think about me. I'm not. But even if I was, shouldn't fucking matter. But to each their own, right? And okay, there's a voice in the back of my mind, right? That's like, Emily, you should be more clear and direct. I don't work on OnlyFans. So just FYI, if there's like AI versions of me on OnlyFans, it's not me. I will never have an OnlyFans. Ever. I guarantee it. I'm a coach. I'm a mentor. I help people alchemize their trauma and move through that. I guide them as they navigate various transitions. I hold space for them. And a lot of what I help people move through is healing through issues with sexuality and sexual wounding, right? I also recognize, right, based on some of my marketing, I show that ass. I'm very provocative. Which, fun fact, the Gene Keys, this is where that comes into play. This is one of the ways in which I have been able to come to terms with that aspect of myself, right? Because growing up, you learn that like being a promiscuous woman, right? Being a sexual woman, being sensual, there's a difference between the two, is bad, right? I have gate and gene key 39 in my unconscious Chiron placement. So if you look at my like normal human design chart and normal gene keys, it's not going to show there. But when you dig a little bit deeper into these systems and you look at things like your ascendant, your descendant, your MC, your IC placements, your Chiron, your Lilith, that's where like I think it gets really freaking fun. Because for me, okay, I have some interesting connections with my Chiron placements. My conscious Chiron is 53.4, which is the exact same placement as my conscious sun, my life's work in the gene keys, and my brand, right? Because that sphere is part of both the activation sequence and the pearl and star pearl. So it's like my wounded healer archetype, my conscious wounded healer archetype is the exact same as my conscious sun, which is like 70% of my makeup, right? I think what's interesting about that, right, is I make the connection. I play a lot with like the core wound and how that connects to them. So it's like when I'm triggered by something, when I feel rejected and I start to react, that ties then to both of those things, right? I don't know what I'm doing with my hands right there. um and it's fascinating because it's like by working with my core wound, which becomes your vocation, I embody my wounded healer, which is also my life's work. Fascinating connections. And fun fact, 53, it's a Cancer gate. Like I am a Cancer. There's part of me that's like, oh no, you need treatment, right? Like you need to heal from that. Cancer's bad. Then that's a different topic for another day, right? Like the negative connotations with being a Cancer. But that's one thing, right? Tie it back into the 39 though. That's my unconscious. Gene key 39. The shadow is provocation. Provocation. I always mix up how I pronounce it. Like full transparency. The gift is dynamism and the city is liberation. Personally, I find a lot of meaning in that for me, right? I am, without my conscious knowledge, provocative, particularly when I'm embodying that wounded healer energy, which is fascinating, right? So it's like me having done the work, having healed myself, and having started to help others heal from those same wounds is seen as provocative to people if they're in their shadows, right? To others, it's liberating. Sensuality and sexuality is often tied to being seen as provocative, right? Shift your mindset, liberate yourself, right? Free yourself, which then I'm like, okay, that goes up to, for me, my sphere of SQ, which is developed between the ages of 0 and 7, is 55.5. The way that that gets so fascinating for me, right? 55 is the only gene key. I've mentioned this a lot. I will return to it a lot. The only gene key with only 2 words affiliated with it, only 2 words to contemplate. When you are in the shadow of victimization, right? You see yourself as a victim, others might see yourself as a victim, right? Shift your mindset to freedom, which is the gift in the city of Gene Key 55. I know. I find that fascinating. I made the connection the other day with somebody, right? I don't consider myself a victim. I was molested as a child. I don't consider myself a victim. I have freed myself from that mindset. I am a survivor. Connect the dots, right? That gene key is in my sphere of SQ, which is developed between the ages of 0 and 7. I wonder what might have happened to me, right? I'm just saying. I'm not sharing the details. The details don't matter with that. You either believe me, you either believe other survivors, or you don't. That is your prerogative. Bringing it back to Tim Walz, because I opened that can of worms, right? The woman on TikTok who said that she doesn't think that I should have done that. Well, I did it, sweetheart. Like, it's done. So I'm going to own up to it. And I'm going to emphasize the fact that it's not about Tim Walz. It's about the fact that this is a systemic issue. We see this across all industries. It affects, I would argue, probably every single family in America, whether or not it's like the immediate family or extended or just somewhere down the ancestral line. It's a systemic issue, and we need to weed it out. Part of weeding that out means speaking about it and addressing it and connecting the dots, as uncomfortable as it is, right? We don't want to think about that sweet old man that we grew up with who like treated us nicely as being a perpetrator. But just because they weren't like that to you doesn't mean that something might not have happened behind closed doors, right? And bringing it back to, because I forget if I actually said this or not, the person that was like, are you gonna be coming after other teachers who were also working at Mankato West with Ted Gullickson? Yeah. I'm gonna point out, like, these are the teachers that worked there at the same time. I'm curious. Did you hear things? Like, some of them might have protected the survivors in the only way that they knew how. I don't know. But the point is that Ted Gullickson worked there for years, and the rumors were rumoring. People knew, but nothing happened. I also will be calling out the people who worked at the 77 Lancers or with the 77 Lancers, right? The other adults in charge. Where were you? Yeah. One of the cats. You may or may not have heard her. That's Oakley. Point is, I don't need to justify myself for bringing Tim Walz into things. I'm just connecting dots. And yes, I know I might be connecting dots that don't need to be connected. But I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one thinking that. I might just be the only one saying it, right? It's funny too because I made a comment about how I'm speaking out for the survivors. And somebody was like, "You're not speaking out for the survivors. You're just going after a political figure just to go after him." I'm like, "Sweetheart, first of all, shut your fucking mouth. You don't know, right? Obviously you were triggered, right?" And then one could argue that what I just said was a triggered response, right? I'm speaking and I'm sharing this stuff in hopes that it gives survivors not permission to speak out, because they don't need permission. Not from me or anybody else. But I hope that it makes them feel like there is at least one person who will believe their story when maybe nobody else ever has, right? So yeah, I'm doing this for them, whether you believe me or not. And if you don't believe me, then sweetheart, you're not my audience. Why are you watching, right? Use your discernment. There's that. There's so much that I could say with this, right? And ultimately, I feel like it would really just be giving you a peek inside my head and my brain as like I navigate how I move. And it's funny because like I'll be honest, there's very much a voice in the back of my mind that's like, Emily, are you doing this just to create drama? Like, are you actually moving from a place of integrity? But the resounding answer is yes. I know that I am going to get a lot of pushback. I'm going to have people thinking that I'm crazy, that I'm making shit up. Look at Emily, a crazy childless cat lady, right? I'm fully aware of how I am going to be perceived. And I think that that awareness is exactly what is preventing a lot of other people from speaking up. Because speaking up like this, you cannot be weak. The pressure, the pushback, like I said, the vitriol, the hatred, you need to be so strong, so grounded in yourself, in your reason why, that nothing will stop you. That nothing and no one will put you in your place, right? My place is right here. Speaking out. Let's bring human design into this for a second, right? I am a self-projected projector whose channel that makes me a self-projected projector is the 731. For those of you who are already even somewhat knowledgeable about human design, you're going to understand that on some level. But if you're not, okay, a self-projected projector does not have their sacral center defined. I don't have consistent energy. As a projector, I need to be invited in. I need to wait for the invitation, right? As a self-projected projector, self-projected, that is my authority. I guide myself through my voice, through speaking, which is one of the fun benefits of like going live and then rewatching it for myself, because I can listen to myself and be like, damn, Emily, you were aligned as fuck. Or like, ooh, girl, like, maybe we need to adjust course a little bit, right? Like, I'm able to reflect and check myself through that. At the end of the day, though, I am my own authority. My voice is my authority. It's not yours. You don't need to listen to me, right? But the 731 specifically goes from the G center, which I think is hilarious, right? G center to the throat. So my sense of direction gives me my voice, or my voice gives me my sense of direction, like depending on the angle. What's fascinating with this, though, just as like another added layer to it, is 7 and 31. They're both of them are my south node. So it's like that is what I'm releasing, which is fascinating. Like I've already mastered it, right? But the 731 is like, it's the leadership channel. It's the channel of the alpha. It is a projected channel that needs to be invited in. I will be diving more into that channel specifically later on. I will let you kind of make your own conclusions right now. But basically, right? As a projector with a penetrating aura, because that is what projectors have, whose cross of incarnation is the cross of penetration, I have a lot of issues with that. Did not like that when I first learned about my human design, right? Because as a survivor, not only of what happened to me as a child, but also as an adult, right? I have some issues around non-consensual penetration. I don't ever want anybody to feel like I'm doing that to them, even energetically, because at the end of the day, this comes down to energy, right? I am not going to force myself, my leadership, my voice onto anyone. You can choose to listen or to swipe left, right? Pick your poison comes to mind. I'm not blue. I'm not red. Part of me is like, Emily, what color are you? Right? And then the voice in the back of my mind is like, you're a white ass bitch. Right? Hmm. Interesting trains of thought there. Anyway, I'm keeping this one short today. I think I might have already been speaking for almost an hour, though. I forget what time I actually started. I fed the dog, so it's probably been about an hour. Um, Point being, I am very aware of the fact that I am going to say things, I'm going to connect dots that some people are going to be like, you're dead ass wrong, right? Whether those dots are in the gene keys and human design, or if it's like politics, or if it's connecting the dots between people that could be considered pedophiles or have connections to them, right? I don't always have the full story. I know that. And there's a part of me, this is part of what I'm navigating as I'm starting to share my stories more, right? And the connections that I'm making more. Is I know that me connecting dots without quote unquote proof could ruin somebody's life. But there's a voice in the back of my mind that's like, but isn't that just protecting the perp? And even if like they didn't actually do the deed, right? Or even if technically it was legal, right? That doesn't make it right. And that doesn't mean that accountability doesn't still need to happen. I've mentioned before that I am fully aware of the fact that I'm going to be the villain in a lot of people's stories. And there's probably always going to be a part of me that doesn't like that. There's a part of me that wishes that I didn't have to do any of this. But it would be irresponsible of me not to. They want us silent. They don't want us connecting the dots. They don't want us speaking out. They don't want us calling out powerful people on their bullshit. But we're gonna do it, right? Viva the Viva la revolution. I don't know, that comes to mind, right? Side note, I don't really speak any other language other than English. I learned a little bit of French in high school, so I need to like touch up on that, right? I want to learn Spanish. Um, I know a very, very little. Like I know little words here and there, so it's like I can connect the dots and figure out the topic of conversation, but I don't know anything, and I would not be able to respond. I want to learn sign language as well. Point with this, I don't know why, but like if you speak another language, and especially if you teach or are willing to like tutor me, right? I'm thinking about some kind of an exchange, right? Slide into my DMs. That's what I'm saying there for now. Until which point I have like an official offer up. Part of me is like, girl, what just shut your mouth, right? But like, I don't know. I'm putting it out there. I want to learn multiple languages, and I learn best working with people, interacting, asking questions in the moment, right? So particularly if you want coaching from me, right? I am a certified trauma-informed life coach. I don't like the word life coach, which is why I don't really market myself as such. It has to do with my traumas, honestly. But at the end of the day, that's what people pay me for. So, anyway, this has been a fun little trip. Um, and I'm going to wrap this one up here. We'll see if I go live again this week before my mom comes. Um, I have to clean the sanctuary because it's not bad. But whenever I know that people are coming over, I'm a bit more like, okay, I have a lot of animals. And particularly with my mom. Love you, mom. But I've mentioned before in like not on a live, but in like a little clip that I posted somewhere once, her standards of cleanliness are different than mine because she doesn't live with 15 animals, right? Like there's dirt on my floors. So if I don't vacuum or sweep every day, like it piles up real quick. Anyway, that's a different side note. Well, kind of tying that in before I actually wrap this up, right? Renovations in the house. I need new vacuums because the Roombas that I have are old and horrible. Um, I want to build out actual litter rooms to make it easier not only for myself but also for people who are filling in when I'm not here. Like when I'm traveling, right? So, I don't know. There's a lot of ideas for renovations around the sanctuary here. Stay tuned for that. I'm probably going to document it in some way. It's going to be like an experiment, right? We're going to see what works, test it out here before expanding to another project. Anyway, for sure wrapping it up now because I feel like I'm just like, we need to, Emily, restrain yourself, right? 52, sphere of culture. I need to learn how to wrap these things up better, I feel like. But it is what it is. It's me in the moment. You get to see me with some of my insecurities and all that jazz, right? Like, I hope you enjoyed the show, right? Anyway, for sure this time. Speak up. We're moving into the year of the fire horse. It's time. Sending you so much love. With love. Kai. Just kidding. You know who I am.